just say Father. You don't have to do. You have to be weird. Somebody passed me a paper plate.
A big one or small?
No, like one of the ones I can write on. One of the big ones, yeah. You said there was going to be a whiteboard. You never said that. Okay. I remember being perpetually confused, which is what you guys call discernment. So I'm going to say a couple of things just to help kind of clarify what I think that means, at least from the experience that I've had as youngin' like you guys 30 or 40 years ago, and then as a vocation director, and then as rector of a seminary, and then having to deal with you for way too long. Let's see. Let's go back to logic. Yay!
Easy course.
It was easy, yes. Okay. So I'm writing on this, the genus and species. You remember that when you have to make a definition.
Yes.
And then there's the individual. So form specifies genus, matter individuates species. So you're animals, as you all know. Animals, that's your genus. Species is human. And then
Except for some of them.
for most of you. And then individual is you in your particularity. Listen, insofar as you are an animal, it's built into you to reproduce. Insofar as you are human, you are called to marriage. You guys get this? All of you are called to marriage insofar as you are human and have this kind of body with this kind of reproductive system and need for community and want to love another. All of you are called to marriage, period. Some of you, in addition to this calling, as individuals, God is inviting you also to consider a consecrated type of life. You guys see the difference here? And in the case of some of the men, he might be calling some of you to a sacramental ordained ministry. So don't think of this as either or. It's not really the right way to think about it. It's not, God didn't create any of you to not be married. Do you guys understand that? He called some of you, though you are called to marriage in your species, in your humanity, there's something that he's calling you to forsake that in the case of consecrated life. Are you guys seeing that? Okay, good. I don't know if that's more or less confusing, but it's the way that I've come to understand it. It's given me some clarity. I have no comment on soulmate. I really don't think that's real. I'm sorry. Does that mean?
No. I agree.
Sarai agrees, but she's bitter. I'm joking. We have a history. Okay. I don't get the test thing. Somebody tell me about these tests you were taking. That's weird. Don't do that. Don't do those tests.
Why?
Okay, listen. Let me say this. Spiritual direction is not magic. Okay? Do not go to a spiritual director and think that he's going to solve all your problems for you and answer all your questions. Definitely don't come to me, even for spiritual direction, which isn't even that. Okay? No, you can come to me for advice on stuff, but in the end, one of the things that's part of your calling all the way down here in your baptismal vocation is something that Dr. Keyes mentioned, which is the virtue of prudence, which means figure out your own crap. That is the virtue of prudence that you were called to. Is that the way you would say it? Yeah. Okay. So what I would do when I was 17, 18, 19 years old in the seminary and very, very kind of in a very cloudy place as far as what I wanted to do with my life, I would ask all kinds of priests for different advice and just their sort of viewpoint on a very particular question. The way that you guys are doing in this panel, I realize it's good that you're doing this. And they would all give me different answers. No two priests ever told me the same thing. And I would look, okay, that's confusing. Well, let me look to the saints. And the saints have all kinds of different ways to understand things. They don't necessarily say contradictory things. Sometimes they do. But sometimes they'll sort of give you a different approach, a different angle. So in the end, just understand that part of your vocation, as insofar as you're not just specifically human, but a baptized member of the church, part of your vocation is to kind of work through the confusion. And don't feel like because you're confused, there's something bad about you. Are you seeing that? There's nothing wrong. For an 18-year-old to be confused is the most natural thing in the world. Okay. I was going to say something else I forgot about. I'll get back to that. Let me say a little bit about priesthood, just as a sort of specific vocation. And this is something that's, I belong to a church that has married clergy. My diocese, there's about 4 or 5 married priests in my diocese. So in the Eastern churches, it's a sort of very normal thing where a married man can be invited by a bishop to enter formation and to be ordained a deacon and then a priest. So I'm going to speak about just what the priestly vocation is in itself. Whereas I know all of you guys who are discerning the priesthood are discerning it correctly as this or marriage. I get that. I mean, I was doing the same thing. But that's not exactly a black and white thing, as Dr. Key is illustrating, as a lot of the brother priests in my diocese are illustrating. But I want to talk about what it means to be a priest specifically. And I'll just give you one image that I heard during the 50th anniversary celebration of one of the priests in my diocese. And one of the people kind of going up and speaking about different things, and they were giving funny stories from the seminary back in the day in Baghdad, and there's hilarious stories from the seminary in Baghdad 50 years ago. But one image was brought forth during that dinner by the bishop, who described a priesthood as a bridge between the laity and Christ. So the baptized, so the priesthood of the baptized, they receive their sacraments through the priesthood of the ordained. So he understood it as a bridge or as a sort of ladder. It's a sort of common image in the scriptures and in the fathers of the church. But the point that this bishop was making that I found very insightful is ladders operate, they do their job only when they're being stepped on. And I'm not inviting you to step on me, do not. But that's the particular type of vocation that you're being called to. Is the job of the ordained priesthood is to sanctify the laity. The job of the laity is to sanctify the world. That's the way it was sort of given to me Archbishop Vigneron actually explained that to us in the seminary. So these are sort of different angles to understand what the priesthood is. But just like any image I give you, if you think about it as a ladder or a bridge or as sort of another layer or whatever, every image is going to fall short of what a reality is. And it's always going to be a little bit more weird than you think. And the confusion does not end when you figure out what you want to do and what God is calling you to do. It doesn't stop there. So expect that confusion will continue as long as you're in this life of, in this body of death, as St. Paul calls it. Okay. I do want to say one thing about this. And this is really in agreement with, I think, what a lot of people have said so far. Right and wrong, morality is up here. Natural law is about our species as human and the way we should be acting as human. You guys get this? Your vocation is not a matter of sin or not sin. If you feel like, oh, maybe I'm called to consecrate a life, and then you get married, you didn't commit a sin there. You guys understand that? There was a generation, there was a time in the church where there was so much pressure put on people to sort of consider vocations where it was made almost this moral imperative that you're like rejecting God. And even I, in my own ministry, there were times when I would speak in ways that would sort of suggest that, and I think that's very, very wrong. It's an invitation. The word vocation means calling in the sense of invitation. But if you refuse one invitation and accept another invitation, both of which are from God, you haven't done anything wrong. You guys get that? So take some of the pressure off of yourselves. It might help with some of the confusion. And in the end, do what you want. Really, God is calling you, and like you were saying earlier, like He sort of laid both before you. You chose the one that, and you don't have any regrets, right? Yeah, I have no regrets either. I think most people who followed God in the way that they felt called with an open heart, very few of them would say that they regret it. And it's probably not the fault of the vocation if they did. you know. So I don't know. I guess that's it. Let me see. Yeah, that's it. Any questions? It's really hot in here, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't like this. You had one job. Who's AC guy? It's off. And we're like, all this hot air is coming out of us up here. All right, questions? Anyone? Anyone? Yes, no, please.
So you said like don't feel like it's a sin if you reject this invitation because you're taking another one. But would it be if you don't
Nope.
explore the option though?
No. I'm of this very strong opinion that not everyone is even called to even consider consecrated life. It's a weird life, and it's only for weird people. And I'm speaking on behalf of myself, because my celibate vocation I consider as no, it's not for everybody even to consider. I think the vast majority of people, and St. Paul speaks in that way. I had my Bible somewhere. St. Paul speaks in that way. Like, for St. Paul, he was a little mean about it. You guys know how St. Paul talks about it? Like, I mean, if you can't handle it, then yeah, get married. That's the way he said it. That's a little bit of, St. Paul was kind of mean. But he understood just human nature being what it is. It's the kind of Catholic college thing that every girl has to consider being a nun and every guy has to consider being a priest. Sure, think about it. If like after 5 minutes you're like, I don't know, then you're done. You're done discerning. Don't bother yourself any more than that. Really, because you guys torture yourselves. Honestly, I don't know how you live. Okay, sorry. Does that answer? Is that help? Okay. Oh, that's so much. AC is so much better. Yeah. Julia.
Do you think like individuality and wanting to be independent is a sign of immaturity, or is that just a grace that?
No, I love it.
Not grace.
I'm actually really liking this diocesan hermit thing. I'm going to look into this. Does that mean I don't have to talk to anybody?
That is literally
Okay. Diocesan hermit, Father Andy. Okay. What was your question? I forgot the question.
Is individuality or like wanting independence naturally within you, is that a sign of like immaturity, would you say, or is that something?
Oh, I don't know. I think that's up to. It sort of depends where it's coming from.
on the person.
Yeah. In my case, yes. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how like religious live in a community. I can't.
Or married people.
Or married people, for that matter. Yeah. I've been in here with you guys for like an hour and I can't stand it. I'm not even joking. Yeah.
Thanks, Ron. I guess this is more towards kind of like universal call of holiness. So I guess
Yeah.
anybody can answer, but I wanted to ask you because of your deep intellectual abilities.
Mocking me. Okay.
So with I was talking with some friends about this, but with the universal call of holiness, as far as you're a priest.
True.
Yeah. Very true. So at the heart of the gospel, we have the redemption, the cross. It's like that's what distinguishes us as Christians, as Catholics, is the life, death, and resurrection of Christ. Yeah. That's it. So for I guess even our generation and younger generations, more and more are being taught to kind of neglect all forms of sadness and suffering, and that's such a key part to the Christian Catholic faith is redemption.
Is there a question here?
Huh?
Is there a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how, like as a priest, do you see us like fulfilling that universal call to holiness when that is such a crucial part to
Yeah, sure.
our faith?
Look, I mean, I think any grown-up will tell you, like, you don't get to choose whether you suffer or not. You're going to suffer. Like, your life is going to suck really bad, really well. So you don't get to choose. You really don't. It's going to find you. What you get to choose is whether you react to it like a big boy or like a little drama queen. Not you particularly, everybody. So, so it's a really good question because that's exactly the mechanism one of the mechanisms through which God sanctifies us. We suffer. It's not, and don't ever think that God is like pinpointing you to make you. It's just part of being a human being. So that's there. You suffer. you eventually learn to accept it with humility and with grace, that itself is sanctification. That's what sanctification means, or it's sort of one aspect of it. It means kind of growing up and realizing, yeah, the world doesn't revolve around me, I don't get everything I want, and that's okay. And it's not the end of the world. And that's really beautiful, that kind of act of humility to say, I'm going to be happy even though I don't have what I want, because I have God. That's awesome, and that's universal. That's transvocational. Everyone is going to be invited to do that in their life many, many times. Whether it's you're having, I don't know, this is a total, I'm just picking it out of thin air, like disagreements with bishops maybe, I don't know. Whether you're having toothpaste issues in marriage, I've seen my sister, members of my family, my sister, I see her in her married life and the struggle that she's gone through. There's financial, there's issues, losing children, kids growing up and maybe kind of going astray. These are always they're modes of suffering through which God sanctifies us. No matter what our vocation is, it's gonna be there. So, yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Was there like a determining factor for you when starting your vocation?
That's a good question. I don't know. For me, I was very young when I entered seminary. I was 17. And it really took years, just because it's a confusing thing, and I was a confused person, and still am. I couldn't say that there was. I guess the determining factor was, for me, I learned how. It was more a habit than a sort of event. I gained the habit of feeling okay without. Marriage was the struggle for me, was the thing that was hard for me to give up. So I developed the habit of being okay, not being married or dating or whatever. Does that make sense? So I guess developing the habit was the more critical sort of thing. But one other thing, sort of in the same vein, good friendships that were sort of supportive of my vocation. That was really critical too. Yeah, those are the two things I think of. Yeah. Other questions? All right. Oh, yeah, sorry.
So why, you chose, how do I say this? Why did you choose a monastic lifestyle?
It was less available when I was discerning, because I grew up in Michigan. There wasn't a Chaldean monastery at the time there. I don't think I would have. I don't think it would have been my go-to at the time. I guess that's personality. I don't know. I guess it's personality. Like some people really do find they're really fed by community life, and some people are really. I find myself very nourished by the sort of solitude of having kind of the quiet of getting up. I get up and I say Mass in the morning, and it's the first words that I say out loud is the institution narrative during Mass. So that's nice. Like there's something. But then I think other people would be really crippled by loneliness if they were to try to live in that way. So I think that's more kind of a person. Maybe you can click and do a test for those. Yeah. BuzzFeed, yeah. Find a listicle. Yeah.
So you more like.
You won't believe number 6.
Like hermit lifestyle kind of.
I'm loving it, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'm going to circle this. Check into this.
This might be a bit off topic, but how did you feel when you said your first Mass?
I don't feel things. that part of me is broken.
What were you thinking?
You know what I was thinking? Am I saying the words correctly? Because I said it all in Aramaic. And I was really nervous to sing everything correctly. And I didn't. I messed up, but it was funny. No, I don't. That was 15 years ago. Gosh, I'm an old man. That was 15 years ago. I don't exactly remember. I remember feeling pretty good.
So you felt?
Felt pretty good. That was the last time I felt anything.
Well, they always use the analogy of like your wedding night.
It wasn't like that.
That's what I My point is that it's awkward.
Oh, it's awful.
It is. I mean, like, wedding nights are not this like
I don't
romanticized thing. It's like it's yeah. I'm just,
I think you're onto something, yeah. I don't want to say anything after that. Who asked that question? That was you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, can I add another question?
No. Yeah, so let's go.
So I've heard a lot of people say to discern what's right in front of you, right? Or like Dr. Key said, you don't go into a corner and just like, okay, now I'm discerning, right? You look at like what your vocation is. Like for us, it's to be a student right now, so let's start with that and do that well.
Sure.
I guess my question is like, at what point, if you're in serious discernment, do you like turn away from the things that are right in front of you to like go and enter a community or something like that?
The answer I would give you is like when you want to. I don't know. When it seems right. I mean, this is the virtue of prudence is a virtue because of the complexities of all the particulars in life. So it's impossible to give general rules for very particular circumstances like yours. So when you particularly, I don't know. Yeah.
Me neither.
Yeah. I don't know if there's somebody else. Do you want to kind of make it?
Yeah, so we can take